It is going. You're ready to go. I can't look at it right now, or I would look and make sure she's part of the Coos Bay local admin group. No, that's good. You can log in and check too if you want. Look and make sure she's part of the. My laptop is picking this up. I muted the microphone on my laptop using the hardware button. That meeting. And the thing is, Christina's on the same exact laptop. Purchased at the same time. Like we purchased them as a pair. Does? And me looking computer management to make sure that group's part of the local admin group. There's a group policy that's supposed to push that we might want to check on, but definitely worth adding. It wouldn't go over like, it was averaging like 400 megahertz, peaking at like 700. The percentages were always low.
This helps us promote certain ones, that are or are not being used. The newspapers.com is the one that can only be used in-house, so that one has dropped off as a result of that. So I just some information for everybody.
Any questions?
Morning.
Bob, did you have a question?
There's no audio to this.
Yes, what's the Morningstar one?
That's an investment
It can't capture
database.
Thank you.
The one thing that I found interesting, Sammy, is on the A to Z databases, the records downloaded. A couple of months it's pretty high, and then a bunch of months it's just zero. Like one month's 14,971, and then then it's zero. I mean, what stuff do they download?
We have some people who come in and basically develop mailing lists off of that. To mail out either their product information or, something like, I don't know what they're doing, but they are developing some sort of mailing list off of that. And so you can tell when they come.
Okay. Interesting stuff. Any other comments on that? Okay. Well, let's take a look at the budget. So we've got 2 months. Each month's got a revenue page, and each month has got an expenditures page. So take a look, and let's start with March and see if anybody's got any questions. How about revenue first?
So if we're looking at the March one, you can see that that's at 75% of the year at that point, whereas we've received 63.6% of our revenue. We've done well in interest and well in auditorium rental. So it's a good thing because auditorium rental is going to not be that great anymore. So that is kind of the highlights of that.
Any other questions from any of you about the revenue in March? Sammy, is this our last tax payment?
That comes, well, we'll receive May, we'll get one in May.
Okay.
And then we also usually get a little one in June that's kind of the, I don't know, little bits of back taxes and whatever else.
In library fees line, that's where the fines go?
Yes.
Yeah. So since we don't charge fines anymore, we ought to see that number continually being small, right?
Yeah, that also includes anything like damaged, if somebody damaged a book and paid, that kind of thing. So there'll still remain some in there, but yes, without fines, it definitely will not be as large as it has in the past.
And I noticed down in miscellaneous again, that large amount, that's the rent, right, for ESO?
Correct.
When did the budget committee, when we did the budget to the budget committee, didn't they have a separate line out for ESO rental now? Or
they will going forward, starting this next budget year, yes.
So in our budget document, we'll see it in a new place too, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Please remind me what ESO is.
The Extended Services Office, we rent space to them.
Right, thank you.
Can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
You know, the city was doing their budget. They basically said we were going to be pretty good, except for hotel motel tax. And they said because we aren't affected much because most of our income is through property tax. But they did, if I'm not mistaken, say that they thought there would be a decline in property tax, a certain percentage. Am I right?
Rob, do you have a better memory of that than I do?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is the uncollectible taxes. They expect that to maybe increase this year.
Yeah. For some reason, I thought that too, and I thought I can't remember for sure the percentage, but I was thinking it was maybe 6 or 7%. And I was just the only reason I mentioned this because I would have forgot elsewise is that I don't know when we did the library budget, we didn't know about COVID-19, whether we took any of that into account and in figuring out next year's budget. Probably not, huh?
Well, we did, when we estimated the revenue, we went very conservative on the revenue. So I think I feel okay about it. I mean, obviously we won't know until we see exactly how much of those back taxes aren't paid, but we did go pretty conservative in that area especially.
Okay.
Kurt, this is Rob. I think typically they budget 5% every year, but they upped it to 7%, so they're expecting 2% now.
Okay. All right. How about expenditures for March? Any questions there?
Yes.
Go, Bob.
I just noticed that on both months that we've maxed out on insurance, and I just wondered what happened there in our budgeting on the insurance.
The insurance amount is provided by the city, and I know Nicole had reworked a lot of the insurance, and so and it's a one-time payment we do, and so yeah, it's a little bit off, but.
Well, if it's a one-time payment, then we've paid 100%. It should be fine.
Yeah, it should not increase. You know, there's no more payments due or anything like that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Sammy on expenditures for March?
Yes.
Go, Steve.
This is Steve. Yeah. On the expenditure sheet for unemployment insurance, Sammy, I guess for the 2 weeks, did that net us? Will that be netting us any unemployment insurance costs? And also part B of the question is, I think that's paid by the city anyway, if I'm not mistaken. So, but anyway, unemployment insurance, did any of the library staff file claims that will have to be paid and then the fund reimbursed by the library or the city?
Those 2 weeks that everyone was sent home was regular pay, not unemployment. The only people that are affected are our substitutes and our pages. And I know that there's been a couple unemployment claims filed. So there will be a little bit of unemployment payment. And that will, for library employee or for those particular positions, that will come out of the library budget.
Oh, it will. Oh, okay. And it sounds like it won't be terribly significant. That's my impression from what you just said.
Correct.
Because I see there's just $12,000 in the fund, and that would be eaten up pretty quickly if there had been more claims. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sammy, correct me, but I think they were put on administrative leave for those 2 weeks, right?
Correct. Everybody was sent home on administrative leave. Yes.
Yeah.
And we did have some people who did continue to do some work from home. They were able to. And then Christina and I came into the building every other day. We alternated days just to make sure, things like leaks and other fun things like that. So.
Like the book drop.
Right, and the book drop.
Okay, let's take a look at revenues for April. That's page 13. Anything on that at all? I'm honestly amazed that we're making so much interest. I don't know who's doing that for us.
I know. Nicole's got us doing quite well in interest, which is very nice. Not a huge change in the revenues for April, obviously, because there were no tax payments. We didn't have rentals, things like that. So.
Okay. Any other questions on that? If not, let's take a look at expenditures for April. Any questions there? I'll ask, right, they're kind of looking. Small equipment one, the 10,889, was that the signboard out there, the report? Or is that something else?
Okay, hang on, I'm catching up to you here.
Small equipment.
Oh, there it is. Oh, that's starting on our new, is that the first payment, Crystal, for the RFID system in April?
No, we haven't paid anything for that.
Oh, we haven't? Is that what we took? Oh, is that 10 for our sign?
How much is it?
10,000 something.
Yeah, that was the down payment
That's
For the
right.
sign.
Yeah.
or
Okay.
the rest of it, one of the two.
I think it's the rest, because I think at our meeting
Yeah.
in February, we talked about 10,000.
Yeah, we already did that. Yeah.
So it should be paid for. It's a nice sign, but
It looks awesome, by the way.
It does.
Yeah. Much more flexible to work with than the old one.
And you can see it from the road.
Yes. Yes.
anything else on expenditures?
Just a comment on the postage. It looks like you really accomplished something with that project. I really liked it. Approximately how many books got posted?
I meant to have that ready for you guys. I can send out a chart because we have been keeping track every day of how many packages we send out for holds versus we're sending some packages out for programming.
Right.
So we're kind of keeping track of the different segments, just so we know.
That'd be fun to see that.
But it's been a brisk business. We're giving our mailman a good workout.
Sammy, are you still doing the mail holes, mailing them out?
Yes.
Because I think when I called the telephone number for the library, I thought I got a message that said we're no longer taking holes.
No.
We've been
Okay.
taking holds the whole time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I misheard.
What library did you call?
Yeah. Thanks.
That's a good question.
Mental confusion and staying at home kind of go together, so I don't
You can either
know.
manually delete the file, or you can go and do it from the Parks portal.
The only other thing I was going to mention on the expenditures was on the very last page on the 15. I always kind of look at what our net income has been so far for the year and what our net expenditures have been and how much we have left. And we're really in good shape. You guys have done a really good job, because that's $370,000 and some extra pennies still for basically to do the last 2 months of the year, May and June. And in April, we spent about $108,000. In June, we spent about $100,000. So if we have $370,000 left, we're really on the good side of revenue and expenditures. So you guys have done really well.
That doesn't count the last tax payments. How much will come in from that?
Yeah. So that's good, because we probably need a cushion, because when we eventually start to open up a little bit, there's going to be some expenses for the library, ones that we normally don't incur. So it's a good thing. Okay.
Well, I'm just really pleased that we had as much in carryover, and we're going to go into this next fiscal year pretty healthy, which I'm glad, because it is going to be an unknown, that factor of the income there. And now I'm pleased to say that when somebody asks me what the contingency fund is for, I can have a rock solid example, because we haven't had to spend it yet, but this would be one of those weird things where we would need a contingency fund for.
Yeah. Okay, page 16, which is Memorial Funds checking account, March of 2020, and then the same thing on page 17 for April. Are there any questions there?
As you can see, programming spending has dropped off quite a bit.
When do we get reimbursed by Rotary?
We just received you actually signed some of the final invoices today, and so then we can turn it in and get reimbursed for it.
Okay. You mean I was supposed to read those?
Yeah, But what's interesting is that project, that's the one where we partner with all the schools to provide a book for first graders. Rotary provides the book. We help them order them, choose them, and that kind of thing. Obviously, they didn't have their live event this year either. But what they're doing is they've bagged up each book. They know who the kid is, and are distributing them to the schools. And then a lot of the younger grades are picking up packets every week for homework. And so they've been able to capitalize on that to distribute those books to the kids. So while it's not quite as much fun as having the big event at the college, the kids are still getting their books, and we were able to make that happen this year rather than having to wait, which is good, because then they can have one more book at home during all of this.
Okay, cool. Any other questions for her? If not, we're down to correspondence. Do we have any?
Well, we've been getting lots of thank you notes coming in, which is nice. We've had some people, send in $5, $10, just to kind of as a gesture of thanks for, doing the mailing and stuff. Some have been rather humorous. One person gave us $5 and encouraged us to either put it towards mail or a cheap drink, whichever we chose. We put it towards mailing. I want you to know that. But we've gotten some repeat thank you notes. It's been nice. There's been really a nice outpouring from our patrons who appreciate what we're doing for them.
I don't know if it updates.
Yeah. I don't know if all of you saw it, but Kathy Erickson had sent in a nice little email too, basically saying that how well received that was, and particularly some of the people, although in our zip code, kind of in the outer lying areas, and so it was, tough for them to get in and get a book, and how much they appreciated that. So it was a stroke of genius, and it worked really well, and you guys should be proud of what you did. So
I'm happy we were able to make it happen. I mean, basically, our payment we make each week to security is covering most of the postage. Our security company was really good. They totally understood we didn't need them. We weren't obligated to pay them. I did check, and the people we normally have on duty here are still employed. They were moved to other sites. So I felt good about that, that we didn't cause any more unemployment. So I just hope we can get the good ones back when we're ready to. So.
Okay. I'm sure we can. So with that intro, librarians report.
So we have March and April here. Obviously, our programs we only did for the first 2 weeks of March, so some kind of skimpy numbers there, but nonetheless, we carried on. I just listed in the March comments kind of some of the things we started with online right away. And it really, I don't know if I speak for the whole staff, but it's been kind of fun in a way to how can we be creative? How can we still provide things and think outside of the box? And it's been an interesting and fun exercise for us, I think. As far as April goes, much less to report in some sense. We have one staff member who continues to work from home. But he has really taken on a bulk of the work of helping people with their digital devices, and he's able to do that through the phone mostly. He's also been taking meetings online to help people with a variety of things. So that's been great to have him dedicating his time to that, which frees up the rest of us to do some other projects. So it's worked out well. That's been a good thing. And I did mention the Blackout Poetry Art Contest, which was fabulous. And then we continue on with some of our regular programs just through the mail. The kids department has been creating some great things to send home to people. So overall, we're carrying on with our programming as best we can. And once again, I think it's very well received by the folks in our zip code and Allegheny zip code areas.
I thought it was great that Becca's still doing story time online for kids, since there's a lot of kids at home and stuff right now. I thought that was good. And the teen writing group, when I read that paragraph down there, I wrote a note to myself on the side that says, it almost appears like it's more successful online than it is coming into the library.
We had that discussion that maybe that's something, we continue to do in an online format, and maybe in addition to the in-person one. And it has been interesting to watch how some of these things happen. Paul had a poetry reading last night with Oregon poets, and he had people from all over the United States attend that. So it's been a neat thing to learn and see. And there's no reason, even after we 100% open up, that we can't continue to do some of these things online for the people who. I know he made the comment that we have a person in town who attended, but they live out quite a ways, and they were able to attend because they didn't have to drive back into town and that kind of thing. So there's no reason we can't adapt.
Yeah, good time to think about those things. And I thought when I read about the team writing group too, there aren't a lot of spaces in the library that give up very much privacy. Mm-hmm. And particularly when you're a teenager, that, doing that online, that may be a really good way to do that. So
right.
Anyways, any other questions for Sammy at all? I have a few.
Okay.
Have we just kind of put the acquisitions librarian on hold?
Yes, for now, because there's just no way to really effectively there's just not a way to do an effective job or person hunt at this point. We had a part-time staff that we moved to full-time to help Christina with that, so that her head doesn't explode. Trying to do 2 full-time jobs, and that's been working out well. I did have her just through, was it May originally?
Right.
And so we've extended that through July 1st because we knew that there's just not an effective way to do a candidate search at this point. We'll reevaluate that as we get closer to that July 1st date, and see how things are.
When Sammy leaves the room, Christina, we'll talk to you about it.
Okay.
How did our budget go at the budget committee meeting?
It
Were
went
there
well.
any snafus?
There was Sammy's computer freezing, so she couldn't do her presentation, but other than that, it went fine.
Roger did a good job. The only thing that I had asked too before, I think one of the things that they'd redlined was building maintenance and grounds for the library and the general budget. And I was going to come back and try to listen to that, and I got sidelined and didn't hear it. But that was all resolved.
You want me to answer that, Sammy? Since I'm the one who redlined it?
Yes. Which I appreciated you having that conversation.
So I know from last year when you were on the budget committee, Kurt, that you encouraged us to increase that budget line item. And I had noticed this year that they had decreased it by 15,000. So I did what I could to redline it and get that 15,000 put back in there. But unfortunately, there was not really, I could tell there wasn't the support of the entire committee. So I kind of backed off on it.
You should have used all that dirt you had on them.
Right.
But we do have it on in recording that Roger said if there's a major expense, that it will be paid by, I believe, urban renewal. So it's on tape.
Either through urban renewal or an emergency budget or something of that sort. I can remember correctly.
Yeah, I know it's going to be a tight year for the city as well too, but I just always worry because it's an old building that's not doing well, and so I kind of worry. But I understand that. At our meeting way back in February, talking about we can leave it on building. We'll talk about it then. And the ESO thing is working out fine with our temporary director.
Yes, the interim director is doing well. She's been working from home also, but the communication has been great. She's getting things cleaned up, is really on top of everything, and it's pretty impressive for having to be, away from the building. She's able to get so much done and do so well.
How long is Stacy's interim appointment? Is there a time limit?
There is not a time limit at this point, no, because that's another one of those that there's really no way to do a job search right now. So she'll remain in that position until, I don't know.
Okay.
She'll remain.
All right.
Forever.
So since I sucked up all that air and time, did any of the rest of you have any questions for Sammy?
She'll remain there forever. She'll end up with that.
What's always so fun about this? The cameras lots of times don't line up with the faces. So when we're all looking around, it's great fun. Plus, I get to see what's in your house.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you guys stare at each other's houses for a moment because I left Marie's report on my desk. I'll be right back. And then you can talk to Christina about that.
Okay. Yeah, Christina, tell us the truth now. How's 2 jobs at once really going?
It's fine. We're making it work.
While she's going and getting that, Bob, why don't you give us the foundation report since we've been so active?
Well, it's a relatively short report. We didn't do our spring fundraiser.
I have been talking to Sammy, and I was going to see how this Microsoft Teams meeting went, and maybe we'll schedule one with the foundation just so we can get together and talk about the fall fundraiser as well. So I will also say that sometimes you luck out. When the whole thing was brought up about a bond for the new library. Think what a disaster it would have been if we actually had tried to get that on this May or November. So, sometimes the angels are looking out for you. Sammy, the Friends of the Library report.
Yes, Marie dropped off the report. February book sale was $668.91. The March book sale was $1,081.20. The bookstore will be closed until August at least. And then obviously no book sales. And then in August, they're going to determine what's going to happen for the second half of the year. So, and we'll have some more answers for them at that point, probably too, about, because we don't know when, we don't have any dates either for opening, so they're dependent on us in many ways on that. So,
Okay. Old business. How's the building doing?
Let's see, 2 or 3 rainstorms ago, I've lost count. We had another big, the same leaks in nonfiction in the 800s opened up again. No books were damaged this time. That was the only one that really cropped up during all this rain. So I guess that's it. Otherwise, it's just kind of the same. More parts of the ceilings coming down. So.
The one thing I was going to ask you from the minutes in February was there was consideration for putting in some additional monitoring equipment, because remember he said he'd noticed the building was moving. Were they able to do that?
You know what? I don't know. Sometimes they come in here and I don't know. I don't know that they've been here, but I can ask Randy that if that's been installed yet or not.
Yeah, because I think there was he had some concern that it had been moving.
Right.
And wanted to track it a little closer.
Sure.
It is more prevalent when Teams isn't running on that.
Well, they're still doing the regular laser readings, aren't they?
As far as I know, they are, yes.
Long shot, but who cares? It's faster than rebuilding the whole thing.
The rest of you guys, do you have any other questions for Sammy at all? On the building? Okay, Sammy, how about, we've talked a lot about the closure and services already. Is there anything else you want to tell us?
Well, I sent out a revised, as far as any of the closure, I think most of it's been summed up in the reports and stuff, as far as that goes.
Okay. Anybody have any questions at all about that, the actual closure and services that they've been doing?
Okay, yeah, that shouldn't be. One thing I was thinking is when Teams is running.
How's the staff been? Have they been okay with all of this?
Microphone or whatever.
Yeah, they really have been remarkable troopers through all of this. It's been nonstop change. Why are you laughing, Crystal? No, everybody's.
Well, maybe you ought to leave the room, Sammy.
Yeah,
we'll talk to Crystal and Christina.
No, I mean, I've been very impressed. Everybody's been, it's been.
I can't recall.
Weird. Is another way to describe it, but everybody has been really upbeat.
Probably.
I mean, they're still giving great customer service. And with things literally sometimes would change during the day, and people just rolled with it, and I'm really impressed with the way the staff has stepped up.
Maybe there will be some sort of corrections causing that issue.
Good. I actually think it was good for them to get back to the library for a lot of reasons. So they didn't have to use leave, but also just because, they were doing important things and they helped the community out an awful lot. And I was hoping that would help their morale as well. So.
Well, and I'm glad we had a solution how we could continue to help the community, but not, we didn't want to put any community members or any staff in any kind of situation that would not be healthy.
Okay. New business. Stages of reopening. You sent us out some drafts.
Yes, the second one that I sent out, there was one in the packet, and then I sent a slightly revised version after that. I've been working closely with Haley over at North Bend, their director, and so we had pretty much the same plan, and then we went through our plans together and really aligned them to make sure that, we didn't do something that the other one wasn't doing or was doing, because we're just too close to not be on the same page there. So there's just a few slight tweaks to that second one I sent. And obviously there are no timelines put on this yet, but these are kind of where we're going with the levels of service.
You guys have any questions for Sammy on it?
I have one, Mr. JR. One of the questions I had when I was reading through this was, I'm assuming, and I shouldn't do that, but I'll just say that, I'm assuming that the city also has an operational plan, and this is the library's tab, so to speak, in the city's emergency operations plan. Am I seeing that correct, or are we off on our own here?
Well, the city has plans to reopen City Hall, stages to reopen City Hall and things like that. And this is our building's plan also.
But we're coordinating all that with the city's emergency operation plan.
Correct.
Yeah, because I didn't see that in the preface in this part, so I just wanted to be sure of that.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have my hand raised.
Okay, go, Bob. I can't see it when you raise it. Only Sammy can.
Oh.
Well, I just want to make sure that I understand that I'm looking at the plan it was sent out in the packet, and you're saying that that's not the current one?
I sent one after that has a few minor adjustments to it.
Okay,
the one that's in the packet is pretty close to the final.
I'll go back and look at the other one.
Okay.
I have a question.
I'm losing everybody. Go, Peggy.
Sammy, on the revised one that you sent out, I was wondering if you had talked at all about how you were going to determine the number of people that come in. I didn't know if people were going to come in and sit and read, and or if there'd be some kind of a time limit or what, because I know when I've been in there, there've been people that have been there for quite some time, were there when I got there, were there when I left. And if they're just there to sit, normal conditions, it wouldn't matter, but maybe if access to books and whatnot are limited, maybe I wasn't sure how that was going to be.
Right, until we reach, in the first 2 levels, there's no entrance into the building. And then on level 3 is where we'll have limited access, but we'll have things like no seating at that point. And we're actually going to essentially close down most of the stacks and have it roped off. So there's a very limited area of the library they can enter. When people come in, they generally, when they come into the library, they generally go to new books, DVDs, and audiobooks. So we're going to keep those areas open, but we'll figure out the square footage of that to determine how many people. And with no seating and no computer use at that point in time, it's basically going to be an in and out thing.
Okay.
So we will not have any seating until, probably at least level 4, if not 5. Probably level 4 will have minimal seating.
And Sammy, this is JR. In level 3, would they be allowed to use the library catalog on the computer there?
Probably not, because we wouldn't have a way to sanitize it.
Okay.
They would have to they could use the people.
That was my next question, is how would you sanitize it? You also mentioned in the level 3 was the PPE. And do you have a way to source that and storage?
Well, we would have room to store it. Currently, our problem is the sourcing of it, the consistent sourcing of it, I should say. We can get some here, we can get some there, but we don't have a guarantee of timelines. So that is one of the concerns with going to level 3, is we would have to have a consistent ability to do that. And I've spoken with Chief Anderson at the fire station, and he has even better resources than we can get. And so I'm working with him to try and determine when he feels there's a significant enough sourcing of it so that we can do that.
All right. Well, I was concerned about that. I made a note on here. Thank you.
I was just going to interject a specific thing. I actually looked at the new CDC guidelines that came out, the expanded version that came out today. And for computer terminals, one of the things that they talked about was, I guess there's some kind of vinyl covering you put over them so that people don't actually touch the individual keys. They touch that vinyl on the top, and the vinyl is a lot easier to wipe down and clean. So I know even at level 3, you're talking about using computers in a limited source, and so that's it. Unfortunately, the CDC guidelines don't have anything for libraries. But if you go through and look at what they do for businesses and other stuff, you can pick up some things from it and what might be helpful for the library when it comes to open it up.
Just for everybody's edification, this is a keyboard cover that goes on my MacBook, which is vinyl, and you can just wipe it off, and it just sets right on top of the keys. And you can get those for almost any keyboard.
Okay. It looks like Steve is raising his hand. So Steve, you want to unmute yourself and ask?
Thank you. So I'm looking at level 3 where the last line, no restroom facilities available. And I'm assuming that's because that's a problem to keep it after each use, to keep it sanitary. I understand that. Is there going to be some alternative for the public to say a sign at the door saying, understand when you come in, restrooms are closed. There's a restroom down at this location if you need it. Or are we just going to say no restrooms, tough luck?
Well, we, if there is a restroom available nearby, we can advertise that, but I'm not sure that any are open for general.
Yeah, I've been out walking around town, and there's some porta potty boxes at various places, including the boardwalk. The visitor center normally, when they open, has a public restroom. So it just a thought, because that could be kind of awkward for staff to have to handle that issue.
Well, and that's one of the things when we do go to that stage, we'll be definitely in the, the press about it is, so fair warning.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Sammy. That answers my question.
So will those lobby restrooms be locked then?
They don't have a lock on them now, and we may have to investigate getting an actual lock, because any other time that they're out of service for even maintenance purposes, people tend to ignore the signs and the tape and the everything else that we have blocking it. So we will have to take some extraordinary efforts to keep them locked or closed.
Okay.
Sammy, this is Rob. You said there's no timeline, but are you going to be developing some sort of criteria for how you move from level to level?
Yes, actually, the state library is working with library directors and working with the governor's office, because libraries are kind of their own unique creature. And that is something that's headed to that we worked on. We had a mass meeting this last week, and we're trying to get a very library specific guidelines put together so that, generally people have a reference to things and can follow along.
Thank you.
I've got a few things too, Sammy. So let me ask a couple general questions first. When I read the lead-in paragraph for this, it was kind of like saying I got the impression when I first read it that this was maybe a kind of generalized plan that could be used for other emergencies in the future. But to be honest with you, I would feel better if we had a more specific plan for how we're going to open up after COVID-19 and really address that, because there's enough stuff probably specific to what you're going to do with COVID-19 that you may not have to do with a flood or whatever other emergency may come up. So that's just a thought. And my other general question is, I don't know what our responsibilities are regarding the union. If we're modifying working conditions, is this something you have to negotiate with them?
I have not been instructed that we have to at this point.
Okay. The level one on the new draft, I'm on final draft. I'm looking at. We've got reduced service hours. in the other places, like at level 2, where we have reduced service hours, we have, and also on level 3, we have parentheses saying exact times and slash per week to be determined. So is that something that you plan on level 1 too?
Level 1, currently, our reduced hours are the fact that we only answer the phone 11 to 5 daily. Whereas normally we would have been answering it 11 to 7 and then 10 to 7, I'm already forgetting, and noon to 6 on the weekend, or Friday and Saturday. And so when we go to level 2 for the curbside, we won't be offering curbside like those entire days, and that's what's meant by reduced service hours.
Okay. I noticed in level 2, one of the things that changed was that in the original draft, staff is required to wear masks when interacting with the public. And that was removed in level 2 on your new draft. Can you explain that?
It needs to go back in there. Thank you for catching that.
Yeah, because I would think that that's something that we probably would want to do. Okay. So, and the other thing that I wanted to ask about is we're going to curbside pickups in level 2, but we say above that we're continue all the services offered at level 1, and that includes mail holds. So, are we still going to do mail holds at level 2?
Yes, if we have people that still aren't comfortable leaving their homes, or have some reason that they cannot come in to pick up things, we will be able to still mail some.
Okay.
Do we have any kind of idea when we might move to level 2?
No. We're waiting on things like our plexiglass shields. They won't be done until the end of May at least. As far as getting, we're waiting also to see how phase 1 goes in the county. So that will help determine when we move to level 2 is how phase 1 at the county level goes.
Are we going to let the public have some idea of what our plan is?
Yes, I wanted to discuss it with the board, and then we'll fill in some more details like Kurt was asking about before we go live with it, if you will.
On stage on level 3, Sammy, I noticed one of the things I wanted to ask is when I look at that one in level 3, is that when we stop mail holds? Or do we continue to do them? And the reason that I asked that is in the original draft you had continue all services in stage 1 and 2, and in the second draft you don't. And I didn't know if that's because you were going to stop the mail holds or what your plans were there.
We can continue with the mailing holds. We don't want to force anyone who's uncomfortable to come. We don't want to force them to come in if they're not ready to. So we would continue level 1 and 2 there too.
Okay. Then the other thing
because in level 4, I have continue all services offered in level 1 and 2.
Yeah, I was going to say that too.
And it should be entry.
The other thing that got changed, one of the things that got changed from level 3 in the original draft and your second one was in the original draft we had public strongly encouraged to wear masks while in the building, and that was removed in the second one. Again, your thoughts on that one?
Well, we're going to strongly encourage them. We're still waiting for some sort of legal opinion on whether we can make them. It's probably not going to be, so we will strongly encourage people coming into the building to wear them.
Okay. The other thing that am I right now in level 3, there's going to be some limited public access to the building, right?
Correct.
Okay. I noticed that in the draft, we had reinstate security services. We don't have that on level 3 in the new one.
Oh, yes. This is when we were trying to coordinate with North Bend and they don't have security, so it probably got removed.
Yeah, I was thinking that as soon as the building starts to open up,
Right.
you're going to need security staff there.
Yes.
And even if it's to encourage people to do some kind of social distancing or whatever, there's been so many problems with those kinds of things. I think the security staff really needs to be there, which also tacks onto that thing about continuing to do the mail holds, because that's where some of your funding comes for doing that. So,
well, and the other thing we'll have security to help us with is to make sure that the limits put on the people coming in is maintained, so that we know how many people are in the building. And if somebody's right out there out front counting and keeping track, staff doesn't have to worry when we're in here of who's doing what and where and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it kind of gets to Peggy's thing about how many people you're letting in and for how long and that sort of stuff. So
right.
And then the other thing is, yeah, it would be nice. I don't know there isn't anything in there when we start opening up limited for the public, what the cleaning requirements are going to be. And I guess because I read that stuff on the CDC site, they talk about all the cleaning requirements that are required for countertops and everything and anything that's touched frequently and all that sort of stuff. It kind of seems when we do the final one, we may want something in there, not only for the janitorial services, but what I guess staff is going to be doing regarding that.
Steve has his hand up. So, Steve?
Yeah, thanks, Sammy. I'm wondering, has there been any discussion of ventilation in the enclosed spaces in the library, the current status, and whether that's a concern? Viral load concerning COVID-19, it becomes particularly dangerous, according to what I've read, in enclosed buildings where there's poor ventilation or the circulation of the air is in a way that tends to concentrate and create more of a likelihood of infection if there are particles out there. So has that been looked at, talked about, anything, or is it just sort of not even on the radar?
Well, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot we can do about our ventilation. Well,
filters, optimizing what we have. I understand the limitations. I'm just wondering if that's been put on the table and looked at.
Well, our filters are changed regularly. We could look into having them changed more often.
I know they don't filter viral particles. I get that because the viral particles are so small. But from what I've read on that subject, it's something that at least we should be, in my opinion, looking at, just for the protection of the staff primarily, but also for the public if they come in and linger.
Well, that's the thing, is they won't be able to linger for quite some time.
Yeah, that's good, because a lot of people don't seem to have been doing a very good job of informing themselves. And there's other issues too I'm aware of, but so I'm glad that we are limiting access, because I'm concerned about the staff getting hit with this. Most of us will be okay if we get infected, but there's a substantial number, regardless of age, who could even be, killed by it. So I mean, this is a pretty serious matter, and I just thought ventilation was something to have a look at least. That does it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. It gets back to that mask requirement again, too. And I realize we may not be able to require masks for the public, but airborne particles and the whole deal with the mask isn't so much from getting it, rather it keeps you from spreading it. So, that's the thing. Level 4, we say continue all services offered at 1 and 2. And I guess, did you say you're going to put in level 3 as well? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Where it says no in-person library programs or public use meetings, that's okay. Everything else has always kind of been positive, saying what we're doing rather than what we're not doing, because we could put in no personal library programs or public use meeting in every category until we get to level 5. So right. I just didn't know if it needed. And then is ILL, is that interlibrary loan?
The ILL, yes, that we'll reinstate it at that point. And that will also depend on whether other libraries are even participating, because it will do us no good to send out requests if nobody's answering out there. So that was kind of, when we're able to, we will.
Yeah. And are masks still to be required by employees then in level 3 and 4?
Level 3 will, and level 4 probably will. Yes, I can say yes.
Well, we say we're continuing them. We say we're continuing them from those other ones, so I'm assuming that we probably are.
Yeah.
A question. I know we can't probably require the public to have masks on. Have we thought about doing temperature scanning?
Doing what? I'm sorry. Oh, temperature scanning?
Yes.
No, I haven't yet, but it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Okay. I'll just put it on the table. I don't know what to do about it, actually. It sounds hard to implement, actually.
It does sound hard to implement.
It's just a labor question. It's just a labor issue. You just need to have a person at the door with a temperature scanner, and it goes very fast. I'm wondering if that's something that security could do.
Well, we could look into it. They've always been very good about helping us however they can, so.
Only takes a couple of seconds.
It gets into this whole issue of, since it's a public facility, to what degree are we allowed to limit public access? And I think that is something that really, before we reopen, that's something that really needs to be discussed about what can and cannot we require of the public, and how much can we limit their access to the building one way or the other. I mean, I personally wouldn't want somebody that was coughing and had a fever coming into the library building during that limited opening. But I don't know, if it's a private business or you go see the doctor in your clinic, they do all those things because they're private entities. And I don't know what our limitations are being a public facility. That's all.
Well, that's
maybe we should ask the city attorney then and find out.
Well, we also have guidelines coming in from the state library too that we're waiting on. So hopefully they can answer some of these questions for us.
Okay.
But Bob, in my opinion, is right that the city has a city hall, and that's a public building too. So I'm sure that they have talked about exactly what Kurt's concerns were about how much can they limit the public to coming into the public building. So I think we can get on board. At least we ought to ask them what their plans are at the city level, and at least get guidance on that.
Yeah, and then I really would like to see something in somewhere about what we're going to require of our janitorial services, because I think even with a limited opening, it's going to require a different kind of cleaning than just the general routine cleaning they did before COVID-19. And it may end up costing us more, but I think that's something else that needs to be in the plan about how we're going to explore that with them and what commitment they're going to give us to do that. So.
Okay.
Well, Sammy, on that talk, what do you at work do now to protect yourself from each other? Because you do know anybody could have it and be asymptomatic.
Mm-hmm. The staff has done it, other than right now. This is probably the closest we've been. But that's what's nice is we are kind of each in our own corner of the library, doing our thing, doing a project. So it's been nice in that sense. People really aren't getting that close to each other. Mm-hmm. And I've yelled at some people sometimes when they get too close. But for the most part, staff is doing really well of just kind of staying away from each other.
Okay.
We're doing a lot more yelling across the library than we ever have. It's been kind of.
And I think, Sammy, I think you've had the policy too, that if anybody feels a little bit ill at all, regardless of what it is, that
Yep.
they're just going to call you and say, I'm not coming in. And we're going ahead and approve that leave because we don't want anybody sick there.
Right.
Yeah. And I've been going down and signing invoices, and they don't laugh at me. I wear my mask when I go down and when I'm in there to protect them. And I actually wear my little gloves to open the door, and I actually use my own pen. But they're really pretty good about staying away from each other. It's a lot emptier when there's not the public and when they're not sorting a lot of books. So one other thing that we need to kind of have in the plan, and I know, Sam, you and I have talked a little bit about, is concern over returned books. About, how do we control whether or not that's an issue for employees coming in contact with anything on returned books. Have we thought more about how we're going to do that? I think, let me reiterate, I think right now the plan has been stuff gets dropped in the book drop. People maybe put on their gloves and stuff. They put them on some racks and then they cart them off somewhere and let them sit for a number of days.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yeah. We have
and that's because we have the space for them to all sit and stuff right now. Is that still kind of the plan when we do this limited reopening, or have we thought about what else we might be able to do?
That's pretty much the plan. We have limited people. We have a dedicated cart, as Brittany has nicknamed it, the COVID cart. It stays just with the book drop. It doesn't intermingle with anything else. And the book drop is emptied by one person only. We don't have multiple people going in there. There's a designated person to do it. And then things are quarantined. Currently, most of the literature is coming out with 72 hours quarantine. So that's what we have been doing. Yeah, basically we just let it sit and don't touch it again until time's up.
Okay. All right. Anything else about these drafts for Sammy from the rest of you?
You'll be sending out an updated version?
Yes, as it gets crafted more and more, I'll send out updated versions.
Thank you.
Because as I went through this tonight, I thought about some other things, so I may send in a comment or two, if that's all right, Sammy.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, and if you dated them, that would help me.
Okay, yep, certainly.
A version number at the bottom.
She has you both.
And
James, she has you down marked for spam, so it's fine. You send it in.
Well, this, it's gonna evolve as we go, because after, even after we go to stage 2, we may find some things that we need to do differently and change and anticipate for and that kind of thing.
You know how that is. No plan survives first contact with the enemy.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, considering somebody threw a bunch of dirty paper towels in the book drop today, kind of reinforced my reason of why we're not opening.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't set them on fire, did they?
No. It was gross stuff as is.
We had you're laughing there, Rob. I saw you, but we had our bathroom. Somebody set the toilet roll on fire.
Oh yeah, we've had 2 fires now. So anyway,
Okay.
So that's where we are on that. Yeah.
All right. So James, you had us to add the board members extensions. So you have the floor, James.
Well, I got an email from Ms. Mickelson today, the secretary, the administrative assistant, I guess, at City Hall, and she said my term was coming up at the end of June, and would I want to? Since we were in this process, they were just letting it go to September until September, before they started up on the renewals and the interviews and that kind of stuff again. So she was asking, did I want to do that? And maybe I'm the only one that's sitting on the board that got a notice like that. So, so I'm going to tell her, yes, that's okay, if the board's okay with that.
Sure.
I think Steve might also be up this year. Is that right, Sammy?
James was the only one that it applies to. To my knowledge, I want to double check on that though. The other person that they extended until September is Francis Smith, who is our representative, one of our representatives to the county library board. They also extended hers until September. But let me check on Steve's because I had that kind of back of the brain tickle that he was up to, but I'll double check on that. Oh, Steve has his hand raised. Maybe he knows.
Yeah, I think I do. The foundation term I'm serving was renewed this year at, I think, the last meeting. The board membership, I believe, is due to expire June of 2021. Now, I'm not 100%, but I'm about 95%, and that's good for me with my increasingly sieve-like brain. But anyway.
Okay, well, we'll double check on it and make sure everybody's good.
Well, I'm going to tell Ms. Mickelson that I'm okay with that as long as the board is okay with that.
Okay. Did Kurt have to go get the cat, or?
Hey, don't be giving my cat a bad time.
I got to see the cat in the practice meeting.
I thought that we had 2 up this year, but I could be totally wrong. So I was just
I thought you were right too, Kurt, but I don't know.
What's that?
Kurt, Kurt, this is Rob. I just looked up the agenda from our council meeting, and James is the only one.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Thank
you, Rob.
And I think the consensus was that we can tolerate James for at least September.
Thanks.
Absolutely. He's like turmeric or pepper or something. It's good to have a little spice.
Okay. So James, make sure and tell him that you're interested.
I'll do that, Kurt. Thank you.
Anything else that anybody needs to bring up as far as new business is concerned? Okay. This actually went better than I thought it would, to tell you the truth. So I'm pleasantly surprised. How about a meeting next month? And I guess we should probably assume that it's going to be Microsoft Teams again.
Yes.
So what's the date?
I don't have my calendar in front of me. Whatever let's see. What are we even on? We're in May, aren't we?
Why is it that all people don't show up on the screen that are in the meeting?
It takes, well, if you have an updated software, 9 people will show up on the screen at a time.
And I have 6.
Okay.
Well, Peggy, here's what I think's going on. One is it used to be just 4, because when we did it the other day, it was only 4. They've expanded it to 9. You yourself shouldn't be there. You should be probably down in the bottom in a little square. And Steve's not on because he took off his video to help with the audio. And nobody else is checked in. And Tyler and the tech people, they aren't showing themselves on there either.
Kathy Erickson did send an email saying that she's on.
Okay.
Because we can see her initials down there.
So. We can see her there, but she doesn't have any sound.
The meeting.
Crystal, I'm going up as the 17th of next month.
Yeah. Yes, 17th. June 17th. I will set it for 5 o'clock again, even though it starts at 5:15. But once again, if everybody could try and log on a little bit earlier, just to make sure we're good to go.
Fine.
Steve has a hand raised. Yes, Steve.
Yeah, I do, Sammy. I'm wondering, is there a good time that I can call Tyler? Because my audio has been kind of crappy, and it may just be my specific, the way I've got things set up. So he might be able to help me get better audio next time, so I can really catch everything that's being said.
Okay.
Get a MacBook, Steve.
I've got an iPad Pro. There shouldn't be a problem with it, James, but who knows? When can I reach him? Is he in like between 10 and 5 or something?
Well, Steve, if you send me a good phone number, email me a phone number you want him to call you at, and I'll pass that along, and maybe a time slot that works for you.
No problem. Thank you.
We'll see what we can do there. And if nothing else, Steve, if it's something with your equipment, we can probably find some library equipment to lend to you for that meeting or something.
Oh, thanks. I have I just prefer using my iPad, and I may have to load the Microsoft onto my PC and do that and see if it'll be better. But this iPad Pro is a pretty robust chip, and it's just this is maybe it's just today. But I thought if I talked to him, it would be helpful.
Okay.
Maybe he could set me.
Yeah, we'll set up a time for you just to check in and see what we can do there.
And Steve, this is the. Whoops. Yeah, I'm still on. If you call me, I might be able to help you figure out if you're using wireless, and you probably are if you're using the MacBook. I mean, if you're using the iPad. And so we can talk about some possibilities that your wireless is actually not got the amount of bandwidth that you might think it has.
Okay, thanks, James. I'll keep that in mind. Appreciate it.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for attending. It went much better than I thought. And meeting's adjourned, and I'll see you all on the 17th of next month. Thanks, library staff.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, thanks, James. I'll keep that in mind. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for attending. It went much better than I thought. And meeting's adjourned, and I'll see you all on the 17th of next month. Thanks, library staff.